Toleration be the love. Before pride and exaltation be the love. Be the love.
You are listening to Be the Love, transcending through the shadows into a higher state of consciousness. We are souls on the journey, opening up the conversation to heal, awaken, and connect ourselves and the planet to a higher vibration of love frequency. It starts with you. Everything you need is within you. This is your time. I am Stacy Musial.
And I am Sam Fernandez, and we are your co-hosts at Be the Love podcast. Thank you for tuning in and ascending with us. Hop on board the Ascension Bus.
This is Adrienne Alyse of the Supernova Soul Tribe.
This is Nicholas David Mann.
This is Dr. Brent Satterfield of Inner World Movement, author of Bringing Heaven Home.
Hi, this is Dana Parker with Inner World Movement.
Hi, my name's Steve Nabell. Here I am with Stacy and Sam on Be the Love podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Be the Love, transcending through the shadows. I am Stacy Musial.
And I am Sam Fernandez.
And we are your co-hosts and souls on the journey. And thank you so much for tuning in this week. And if you've enjoyed listening to our show, we would be so grateful for a 5-star written review on iTunes. Reviews really help us to become more visible and spread the word to others. And so if it feels safe for you, I'd like to begin by inviting you to get centered with us. I'd like to begin by inviting you to take a beautiful cleansing breath in through your nose and out of your mouth, releasing anything that is keeping you from being present right now. And take another deep breath in through your nose, breathing in calm, peaceful, loving energy, and breathing out anything you are ready to release right now in this moment. And take one more breath in through your nose, breathing in light and love, and breathing that light and love out to the world and all of humanity. And remembering that you always, always have your breath to come back to. So today we have Alyse Bacine. Alyse has been teaching and practicing breathwork for 20 years and is the founder of the Metamorphosis Ascension Journey. She uses her powerful connection to spirit to tap into people's energy so she can help identify what's holding them back. She helps them overcome these blocks through breathwork, the Akashic Records, and powerful energy healing. Alyse's mission on this planet is to guide people to activate their ascension, live their soul's mission, and step into the 5th dimension. So thank you so much for being here today with us, Alyse.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Me too. I'm really excited just to dive into this topic today. But before we get into our topic of the Akashic Records, tell us a little bit about what got you started down your path to where you are now.
Yeah, so it's been a little bit of a journey, as most of us have had. But so my journey started around when I was 19 years old, actually. I was a freshman in college. It was the end of my freshman year of college. And that was when I discovered breathwork. So I was kind of in a state where I was looking for answers. I was struggling a lot with an eating disorder. I had really bad anxiety, and I was just kind of like, well, what's going on here? Like, do I just go to college and get a job and like, this is it? Like, I was like, there has to be more in life, and I was looking for these answers. And I was also looking for reasons as to why I was so miserable, because I had a seemingly quote unquote good life. So I just was on a search for answers, and I first discovered yoga, and I started working at a yoga studio. And through working there, I was introduced to so many different things like Ayurveda and Thai yoga massage and like all these different healing modalities. And I became a vegan and started like learning about nutrition. And then it was there that I was introduced to breath work. And I really had no idea what it was, but at that point, I tried anything that came across my path, and I tried it. And I don't even remember anything really powerful happening that first time, but for some reason, I was just very drawn to it. And I just started immersing myself in it. And here in Philadelphia, we have this really beautiful breathwork community. And I just started doing all of the workshops they had. And I did 3 different 9-month-long breathworker training programs. I did a teacher training program. So I just really started to immerse myself in it. And it really, to me, was kind of what I was looking for as far as really being able to go deep and uncover why I did the things I did, why I was experiencing what I was experiencing, like going into family dynamics and healing all of these things from my past that I didn't even know I needed to heal from, right? Like people were talking about healing and I'm like, well, what do I need to heal? I don't have anything to heal, right? Because like I didn't even realize I had things to heal. So that kind of started me on my journey in my very early 20s. And breathwork was always this thing that I did, right? Like I always shared it with people. I always had clients throughout, since that time, just kind of on the side. But I also became a school counselor. So I got my master's degree in school counseling. I became a school counselor and I did that for about 10 years. And then later in around 2019, I kind of had like a second real big spiritual awakening where I was like, okay, like I need to get the show on the road. Like I know I have these really powerful gifts as a healer and a psychic, and I need to start using them. So I started my business in late 2019, and I initially just thought it was going to be around breath work, and it quickly shifted into all of these other things because I really started to hone a lot of my gifts, and I was introduced to the Akashic Records. I learned to read the Akashic Records, and that became a really big part of what I do. And then I just started basically being kind of like a spiritual mentor for people and really using my gifts to help people completely shift their lives quickly. So that's what I do now. And that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
So thank you, for sharing your story. So it sounds like it really just led you to your purpose, everything that along your path. And so, I think what you said about, sometimes, we're like, well, what do we have to heal? And then, it's kind of like breaking open that egg or that valve, and then stuff starts to emerge. And so it sounds really beautiful, just where you have come from and your path. And so tell us a little bit. So it sounds like you've done a lot of work with breath work, but it's also kind of evolved into the Akashic Records. So I'm really, really interested in talking about that aspect. And so can you, for our listeners that aren't familiar, can you kind of explain what the Akashic Records are?
Yeah, so the Akashic Records, the way I like to describe it is kind of like this library of information of everything that has ever occurred or will ever occur in the universe. So it's basically like all of the knowledge of the universe. And the way that I experience it, and I think everyone kind of experiences it a bit differently, but the way that I experience it is that it's a frequency of information. So it's almost like tuning into a radio station. So I'm able to tune into this frequency. And then when I do, I start to receive information through visuals, through hearing, and through feelings. And then I basically just translate that information into words for the person that I'm reading for, if that makes sense.
Sure. So tell us a little bit more. So it sounds like there's this universal library, so to speak. And then how does that also translate into an individual?
Yeah. So when I read an individual's Akashic Records, what I'm really looking at is the evolution of their soul. So I'm looking at their past lives, future lives, ancestral patterning, their soul's mission and purpose, the information that their guides have to share with them. There's a lot of stuff that I can see. For me particularly, the information that's really clear to me in the records is around your soul's mission and purpose, what your soul is wanting to expand into. And then additionally, I'm able to see really clearly what you need to do to unblock you from getting to the next level. So if there's some kind of ancestral patterning going on or something that needs to be healed or shifted in order for you to expand into that next level, I'm usually able to see that really quickly. And then I also can just download some energy work from the records to help you shift that.
I appreciate that explanation, because I'm actually one of those people that didn't know what Akashic Records, what exactly that was. And it sounds like, yeah, it's an all-encompassing work, not just for, the dimension that we're in now, but for, previous dimensions and previous lives and all that, which I always find fascinating. And, me and Stacy were talking a little bit ago about, past lives. And how just fascinating, just even, the concept of past lives is. I've had a past life hypno session before, so I am aware of at least a few of my past lives, but once you learn about them, to have you get this idea of, okay, this means this, back then, but it means something different in this life. It's not a coincidence. It's not a, like, why is this happening? Well, that's what's happening. That's the reason why. And I really love that with the Akashic Records, that how, like I said, it's completely all encompassing. And you said, you tap into those past lives, and you tap into, your spiritual team, and you tap into your higher self, and you tap into your soul. It's all encompassing in the soul. And it sounds really cool to me. But one thing that I was wondering, though, now that I know a little bit more about what Akashic Records are and what it entails, is how can we use Akashic Records to assist us in discovering our purposes in this life?
Yeah, so it's really clear to me when I go into someone's records what their purpose is, and more so like what they're wanting to expand into at this time. So I think the records is really the perfect tool if you're wanting to go deeper into your purpose. Like, I think a lot of people have some sense of their purpose, because it's kind of easy to know if you just look at your life, right? Like, what are you naturally into? Like, what are you already doing, right? These are things where if you look at them, you could have a pretty good idea of your purpose. But I think especially during this time on the planet, people are feeling this call to go deeper into their purpose and understand it on a deeper level, and understand what their deeper contribution is. Because I think especially right now, we have come to facilitate some kind of shift and assist with that on the planet, right? And people are wanting to connect with that more and understand that more, and also additionally understand how to get there. So, essentially, if they're wanting to move to another level, there's usually some kind of block or transformation that's wanting to be made in order to get to that next level, right? Or we'd already be there. So additionally, the Akashic Records are a great tool to just be able to see, okay, well, one of the really common things that I see with people, especially people that are wanting to step forward as spiritual leaders, spiritual teachers, as people who are energy healers, who have these amazing gifts, is that they have some kind of ancestral wounding of like this quote unquote witch wound, I call it. So in past lives, or they're carrying this ancestral wounding around being persecuted for their gifts in the past, right? So now in this life, they're afraid to step forward because they literally associate it on a cellular level with death. So this is one of the big things that I see, that when we go into people's records, it can be really helpful, because people are like, oh, well, I really want to do this thing, but you know, I'm scared of what people are going to think of me, or I'm scared of being seen for this. And then when we go back and look, it's like, oh, well, you're carrying like, you know, cellular wounding of lifetimes of persecution for this. So, you know, once we can recognize that and heal that, then it becomes a lot easier for them to step into it.
I can totally relate to that. I have experienced past lives where I was, you know, I believe, you know, part of like the witch trials, or, you know, something along those lines, is because it felt really, really, it resonated really deeply with my soul, especially around trying to, you know, for the longest time, I felt very suffocated by using my voice, speaking my truth. I was really afraid to say, oh yeah, I really love all this woo-woo stuff, right? And so because there was this big block. And as soon as I started just working with that energy around that, not necessarily the Akashic Records, but I did do some past life stuff. And but as soon as I went into that energy and started clearing it, I started to move forward and really speaking my truth a lot deeper, at a lot deeper levels. So I'm wondering how, like, you know, going into some of that, you know, because I think there's a lot of that, you know, that persecution feeling, and, you know, being able to speak your truth. And, you know, I think that's a very common thing in our culture right now, is there's a lot more people coming out speaking their truth, but a lot of people are still feeling that block. And so I'm wondering, how can we use the Akashic Records and in energy work? Like, what do you do, like, once you discover that block, and how can you help support people overcoming those blocks that are holding them back?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, the number one thing is recognizing it, right? Because even just shining that light on it, the light of awareness, the light of consciousness, like brings it to light, right? So it's like no longer in the shadows once we are become aware of it. So then when I'm in the records, what I'll usually do is channel some energy healing to clear and shift it. And then additionally, after that, it's about maintaining it, right? So now that you have the awareness, you notice when it comes up, and then you can naturally be like, oh, that's coming up again. Okay, I'm going to clear it, or I'm going to take a few deep breaths, or I'm going to like recognize it and then make a decision to not act from that place, right? So one of the things I think is really helpful is like, once you can realize it and see the pattern that's happening, then you can choose out of it and you can step into this new version of yourself. And I think that's what the Akashic Records really allows us to do, is to see this more expansive version of yourself and then feel what it feels like to step into it. And one of the tools I always use with my clients too is to make decisions about your life as this future version of you, because that's how you really shift and change, is stepping forward as this person and creating this new life based on this person you want to be. So, you know, in my business, I'm always like, okay, you know, if I was at the next level that I'm wanting to be at, what would I do right now? And then I make the decision based on that. So I think that's really helpful when we're looking at creating these big changes, is like, okay, this next level version of me that I'm expanding into, what would that person do? So, you know, just a mixture of having that awareness and then using these really practical tools. And of course, for me, breathwork is at the crux of all of the tools that I provide for people. So I also provide breathwork for people to use in the interim. So if we clear something in the records, then I'm providing a breathwork session for you that I actually record and is calibrated to the new energy that you're wanting to create. And then you can move the energy with the breath, which is another really powerful tool to get the momentum going.
Now, is there a certain type of breath work that you draw from? Because I know there's, like, you know, several different modalities or different types of breath work.
Yeah, so I know there's a ton of different types of breath work and it's all great. The one that I was trained in, like I mentioned starting when I was 19, is very simple. It's just called conscious connected breathing. So, and it's just a circular breath in and out through the mouth. And I've really taken that and I've kind of created my own like way of breathing, which includes me channeling the Akashic Records and creating these audio breathwork sessions for people that not only guide them to do the breath, but also calibrate them to this new frequency that they're wanting to create, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So, because what I'm hearing too, because the emotions that may be stored in the body through like the past emotion of, whatever you're discovering through the Akashic Records or what's in the present moment that is keeping them blocked. But because that's all energy, right? Energy in motion is all like emotions. And so when you're using the breath, you're essentially breathing out that emotion, that energy.
Exactly. Yeah. So we kind of like rustle it up while we're in the records. We see exactly what the block is, and then we can use the breath to continue to clear it from the body.
That's so powerful. And so I'm wondering also, talking about the Akashic Records and changing our trajectory through our life purpose. So if we are using the Akashic Records, and we're not really, maybe there's a contract in there or something that you're not really happy with, or you want to change, like maybe it's something to do with the way you're showing up in relationships or the patterns that you're seeing in different things. Is that something that you can go in and say, I want to change that in this lifetime, even though, and dissolve that contract within the records?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I clear contracts all the time. I enjoy it. And whether, a lot of times we're carrying contracts that we made in this lifetime, like a lot of it can be around what happened growing up, our family, the stuff we took on from them, but also, and that also kind of bleeds into the ancestral stuff, right? Because like our parents obviously are carrying stuff that they took on from their parents, who took it on from their parents, and so on and so forth. So as we kind of clear all of those contracts, then it's easier to step into what we came in to really do in this lifetime. So yes, that's 100% a lot of the work I do in the records is around clearing contracts and then clearing energy cords and then just really like activating these new levels of energy.
That all sounds really, really wonderful, really, really wonderful work and a really, really wonderful practice. One thing that I'm curious about now, and now again that I had a better understanding of Akashic Records and where they play a part in the soul's journey, basically. Now is this something that an individual like myself, am I able to tap into the Akashic Records like on my own, or would I need guidance every single time? Because it sounds like very powerful work is being done. So, and I've always been one of those people that's like, okay, if it's something that like intense, probably a good idea to have somebody with you at the time. So I'm wondering, I from what I understand, as you begin your journey with the Akashic Records, yes, it is definitely a good idea to have someone like yourself kind of guide you through that. But is there a point to where you are able to access the Akashic Records on on your own?
Yes, definitely. So anyone can access the Akashic Records, right? I mean, you literally could access them right now. It's just energy. And like I said, to me, it's just kind of tuning into a frequency. However, if you want to have the most like powerful experience and do it with the most potency, then I would say it would definitely be helpful to get some guidance. Maybe first start out with having someone else read your records and then learning how to access them on your own, because it's different. It's two different experiences, right? And the other thing too is you're going to have a different experience depending on who reads your Akashic record. So the information I receive might be very different than the information someone else receives. You know, some people do a lot of stuff around past lives. Some people do a lot of stuff around, you know, animal communication. Like there's a ton of different ways that people access information in the records. Like I said, for me, it's just much more around your guides, your soul's purpose and expansion, and then like clearing any blocks. Like that's just the energy that is really easy for me to tune into, but it just really depends. So yes, and yes, you can access them on your own, but yes, you definitely want to get some guidance. You can read a book on how to do it, or you can take a really extensive course on how to do it. It just really depends on the level to which you're wanting to explore and expand with it. So it's kind of, you know, whatever you choose, but it's definitely something that I recommend everybody delving into at some point. And especially if you feel drawn to it, I just want to share that, like, for me, I felt really drawn to it and I didn't even really know what it was, but and I took a little course, like a 4-week course on how to access the records. And the first time that I entered the records, I had such a powerful experience. Like it felt like just this outpouring of love, and I was crying, and it was like this really beautiful experience. And what I realized is that I had always been accessing the records. I just didn't know it. And it was just something that I easily was able to tune into. And my guess is that anyone who's really drawn to it would probably kind of have that same experience where once you accessed it, you were like, oh, this feels like home, or I recognize this. So, you know, it's definitely something where I feel like everybody who's drawn to it has some sort of deep connection with it.
That's that's very. I just love those kind of explanations, because it's like, yeah, it's a feeling. You got that feeling? You got that feeling, like you're supposed to be doing what you're doing? Then you're probably supposed to be doing what you're doing. But you did mention some books and stuff out there. Is there any books you could throw out for anybody that wants to kind of read a little bit more about it? Because I'm actually one of those people that want to read more about it.
Yeah, so there's a book by Linda Howe, I think is how you pronounce her name, just called How to Read the Akashic Records. I did read some of that. And then I know there are other books out there. I haven't really read any books. My mentor that I work with has a slew of information on the Akashic Records. She teaches a course on it. Her name's Jennifer Longmore. So I always recommend her because she has a bunch of different trainings. Like she has a self-led training, and then she has like a really intensive, 8-month training, depending on what you really want. So she's a wealth of knowledge on the topic as well. So yeah, it really kind of depends what you're looking for and who you resonate with. But there's a lot of amazing people out there who are teaching people how to read the records.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you can kind of give us some examples of maybe the work you've done with clients and how they've used this and what they've overcome and how they've been able to move forward in their life.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love this question. Okay. So let's see. Usually what happens with my clients, so I'll just give you kind of like a general thing and then I'll go into more specifics. Usually what happens with my clients is when they start to clear the deep familial and ancestral patterning, what ends up happening is that they clear space and they end up being able to channel and download their own unique form of healing that they came here to share with the world. So that pretty much happens with almost everybody that I work with. And more specifically, I'm trying to think who I want to share about. Okay, so I have one client, and I'm just thinking of her because it was her birthday yesterday, and I was kind of celebrating her. So she, when she started working with me, she was just kind of like, I know there's more for me. I just don't know what it is. And I feel like a lot of people come to me feeling that way. Like, I know there's more to my life. I know I'm supposed to be doing more than just like working this job and like living this life, and she came to me kind of in that space. And, we quickly started working through a lot of her family stuff and her ancestral trauma and all of that stuff. And then she quickly realized that she has this amazing gift as a sound healer. And she actually downloaded her own form of primordial sound healing and chakra toning, as she calls it. So she actually has this ability to give you these different like tones for you to do with your voice. And then as you do them, she listens to your voice and she's able to receive messages about what you need to like heal and clear based on the tone of your voice.
Oh, wow.
Which is wild, right?
Yeah.
I know. So I did a session with her, and it was mind blowing, like what she's able to pick up on just by listening to your voice. So that's pretty amazing. And now she has left her full-time job and started her own business, and she's doing amazing. I mean, she's, living her best life now. So we have her. I also have a client who came to me, and she wasn't even really sure, like, she knew why she was coming to me. I don't think she really knew why she was coming to me. And that's what happens with a lot of people too. They think they want one thing, but then it ends up like totally shifting. But so this is a really good example of how, the clearing the family and ancestral stuff really allows you to completely shift your life. So she actually, when her mother was pregnant with her, they were like in a refugee camp. Like she came from, I think it was Vietnam, and they were in like a refugee camp, and she wasn't born until like after they had like come to the US and everything was okay. But while she was in her mother's womb, her parents and her sisters like experienced all this trauma, and she never realized that this impacted her because, she wasn't born yet. But this is one of the things that I do with my clients. Everybody that comes to me, we go through their birth story, because your birth story is actually a huge piece around, the way that you look at the world, your patternings, your belief systems. So for her, she came to me, and she was like, her big issue is that she gets really angry at her husband, and she doesn't get angry at anybody else. She only gets angry at her husband, and she doesn't know why. So, we went back and we cleared all of this stuff around the trauma and all of the family stuff that was going on. And like, what we really uncovered is that the anger at her husband was really this anger she was holding about all of these things that had happened, to her family, but it was being expressed by her husband. So like, we cleared all of this stuff, and her relationship with her husband completely changed. They became like high school sweethearts again. And she, and not only that, but she started thriving in her business, and she's an amazing healer as well. And she downloaded this new technique of healing that she does. So, these are the types of things that happen when we really go back and clear a lot of this stuff. And I work really intensely with the circumstances around your birth, because I think that really deeply impacts just these really innate, ingrained belief systems. So that's a really unique part of my work that I know not all people look at. But, what happens while you are in the womb and right after you enter the world really have a huge impact. And I noticed for people that didn't get enough, touch or being held, or didn't get enough attention, like if they had a sibling that was really close in age to them, and they were born and their sibling was like only like 9 months old or something like that, then they really didn't get the care and nourishment that they were really seeking. And then that can come out in all of these different ways, right? Where we feel inherently unsafe or unsupported or neglected, or, you know, it can come out in all of these different ways. So one of the things that I help people with is really healing that feeling of inherent, like, not feeling safe, not feeling supported, not feeling cared for. And we use the Akashic Records and energy work. And then also I create breathwork sessions to kind of like reprogram that energy and recalibrate their frequency to that of like unconditional love, caring, support. So these are the things that I feel really passionately about, because I'm like, let's get to the core of it, right? Like it all started when you were born. So, you know, just going right back to that place and being like, okay, what happened? What were you feeling? And then let's go back and shift that. And that usually helps people shift so much, so quickly.
That is really powerful, because that is right. Like, I mean, there's so much, I don't know if it's anecdotal or research or, you know, what it is, but like how, I mean, it is energy, right? That, and that we can like, I feel like I've read somewhere a while ago that, you know, they've been able to trace back even just the lineage through the mother, I believe. And so like the ancestral, like, so not even just in utero, but like all the way through the mother's line of trauma. And so that you know, being able to go back that far, especially, but in utero, just the thoughts that the mother's having becomes embedded in the psyche, the unconscious of the infant, the newborn, and so going back there,
it's so interesting, because I even had some experiences myself when I was pregnant with my son, who's my oldest. I was doing a bunch of breath work with a practitioner, and I had these experiences where in a breathwork session, I remembered actually being born and actually like taking on my mother's trauma. Like I had like the actual memory of that, which was really powerful to like experience and understand, because this is a common thing, right? Like it wasn't just me who did that. And that I was actually like carrying that. And I had to do a lot of work to really release that and really understand that that's not mine. And I think that that's a lot of the work that people are being called to do right now, is realizing that a lot of the stuff we're carrying is not ours, right? Is we're carrying it from our parents and we're carrying it from the ancestral lines. And when we actually clear it, we're clearing it for everybody. And it's actually like everybody can like breathe this collective sigh of relief, right? When we actually clear it, because it shifts so much, so deeply.
I know I've done some ancestral work, and, you know, just around the different traumas that have been in my family, and it's amazing to, you know, see the shifts in just my family's energy once, you know, you start to shift that. So there's something, you know, it's very apparent that something is working at a deeper level. And it's so empowering and powerful to realize that we can do that work for our family, for the collective. And so as healers, we are really shifting, I think, humanity, not just from our family, but from, you know, the people that are around us and on the planet.
Yeah, it affects everyone. And the other thing I think it's important to remember, like similarly to how I talked about when I was younger, I'm like, well, what do I need to heal? You know, I think a lot of people don't even realize that they have trauma to heal, because we tend to think of trauma as like, oh, like I had like a parent die when I was a child, or I got into a horrible car accident, or like we think it has to be this really big thing. And like this was part of my journey too, because like I said, I had a seemingly great childhood, right? Like nothing really happened to me. However, I was carrying all of this deep pain and suffering. And it's like, well, what's going on here? Right. And it was like really peeling back the layers of like understanding, first of all, like taking on that stuff from my mother and my father, and then all the ancestral stuff going down their lines, like, and understanding how that affected me. I feel like because I was able to really unpack that for myself, that I'm able to really see it clearly with other people, because, you know, it's not always apparent. It's not always going to be like this big major thing like that we know happened. It can be all of these little things, or even these little ways that your parents related to you, or the way they related to each other, that you think is normal as a kid because you don't know any different, but it's actually like really codependent and super unhealthy and really confusing, but we don't even realize it because it's just happening. And then we grow up and we think it's normal.
I love everything you just said. And it totally, resonates with me, because I mean, when I got diagnosed with PTSD, the first thing that came to my mind was, but I've never been in a war. Isn't that's what soldiers have? So why are you telling me that I had that? And you're right. I mean, with the traumas, it doesn't have to be something as big as, a parent dying, or, a fatal car crash, or, something just so profound. It could be little tiny things. And it could be, for me anyway, it was some big things that were suppressed. So it was, things that when I thought about it back then, it's not a big deal. Like it happens to everybody, right? Like everybody has an abusive childhood, or, something like that.
Yeah.
But like you said, once you start peeling back the layers, it starts to grow, right? And you realize just, how much of an impact this had on your life. But I think the good thing about that too, though, is that, the more layers you peel back, the more it grows. But then you have it all out in the open, and now you can do something about it. Now that's that's where the healing starts to take place, right? And I'm actually curious about something too, because you did mention two of your clients, and they both have these healing abilities. So are you seeing like more of an influx of that now? Because, just how the world and everything else is shifting. Are you seeing more people that are coming to you that initially are like you said, like, I think everything's fine, or, like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Can you help me out? But it turns out that they do have that like powerful healing, modality. They have that powerful healing in their soul that they had no idea about. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I mean, basically everyone that comes to me, right? And I'm not saying everyone does, but everyone who's drawn to my work usually does, or at the least, they are being drawn to really connecting with spirit and connecting with their intuition and infusing that into everything that they do, because they're wanting more, right? They're wanting access to more. And I think that's what people are starting to realize on this very like innate level. Like, I know I have access to more. I know there's more available to me than just this 3D reality and these five senses that I'm told is it. And like, I know inherently that that's not it. So they're wanting to establish that connection and really start to connect with their intuition and use the messages that they're receiving in their lives in like a very like practical, tactical way. Like, okay, I know I'm supposed to do this. And now how can I take this intuition and this message from spirit and put it into action? So I think that's a lot to what people are really wanting. But like 9 times out of 10, I would say people that come to me do have these healing abilities. And even if they might be doing like a, regular job, quote unquote, they are wanting to go deeper and infuse their connection to spirit into everything that they do. And then usually that ends up in, creating their own business and becoming an entrepreneur and really just sharing their gifts. Because essentially what's happening is people are wanting to move out of like this old paradigm of trading time for money or having
Right.
to do this thing that you don't want to do in order to receive money, and realizing that they have the power to create whatever they want, and that they can actually just get paid for just being them, right? Like you can just make money for being you. And that's kind of like the paradigm that I'm seeing everybody move into. And obviously you're providing a service and you're helping people, but really you're just being you. And I think that's where we kind of get tripped up, because we have this like programming of, well, you have to do these certain things to survive. And that's what we're kind of all deprogramming right now, is first of all, like, you're going, not only you're going to survive, but you're going to thrive, right? Like it's no longer about, oh my God, I need to survive. But that's been programmed in us for so long. And like, that is actually like one of the things that's been passed down and is living in the cellular memory, that it's really important to clear, which is why the breath work is so important, because that really helps to clear that cellular memory. So I hope that answers your question. I think I went on a tangent a little bit.
No, I love
We
that.
love tangents.
Yes.
We love tangents.
I love it too, because I think, and I know this has been true in my own journey, that, for the longest time, I wanted to do what I was passionate about. I knew I wasn't drawn to that 9 to 5. I had some jobs that were mundane, and, I was never satisfied, never happy. And then I started, going into, like, I was always interested in, kind of just the spiritual journey. But then stepping into my truth, like I knew I needed something deeper and more depth. And when I was just on the surface, I was like, there's got to be something more here. And so when I started exploring that and started speaking, stepping into my truth and speaking my truth, that really started to catapult me into doing things that I was truly aligned with. And I think I've seen that too, just in my own life, and the work I do with my clients, that there's so many people that are wanting more. They're wanting the depth. They want to figure out, how do I live in alignment and do what I love and get paid for that? And that we are, there's a lot of that talk about, well, the ascension, but, ascending into the fifth dimension, and yes, getting paid for being who we are, and really honoring our soul mission, whether or not, what that looks like for everyone is different, and where they're going to be able to provide that is going to be different for everyone. But I think there's a lot more energy into that, and saying, yeah, this is possible. We all have a mission. We all have, and it's time to celebrate our individuality.
Yeah. And people are realizing, like, they don't want to be miserable anymore, right? Like, I think for me, like, I was a school counselor for 10 years, and I loved that job in so many ways, but there's a point where it's just like, okay, is this it? Right? Because like, I think some people, you can have a job and it can be like fine, and especially I see a lot of people too who are like, well, this job is like, it's a really good job. Like, I'd be crazy to leave this job, because we kind of have this programming where like, okay, like this is a really good situation, like don't mess it up or something, like this limiting belief of like, well, you can't get any better than this, right? And like, it can always get better, right? There's always more expansion, there's always more possibility. But we have this programming around like limitation, where it's like, oh, if you get something good, you better hold on to it, because you never know like what's gonna happen, like that kind of thing, which I think we're all wanting to step out of. And I think people are just wanting to really just be happy, but also to, like you were saying about living in alignment, like doing what really feels right to them. And I think that's what people are really wanting to step into. And it's not so much about like forcing or sacrificing or doing something that doesn't feel good in order to get to, some kind of end result. And it's more about like the journey, and like, well, how can I experience happiness in the now? And I think we're learning that like everything is in the now, and all the possibilities are in the now, and the quantum field is in the now. So like, let's be happy now. And I think that's what a lot of people are starting to step into.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I
Definitely.
think people are recognizing their sovereignty, and that they can
Yes.
also create their reality in the way that they want, and that feels good in their soul.
Yeah, and I think there's been a lot of like, in the last like 10 years or so, like we've seen a lot of like, yes, you create your reality, like think positive and all of this stuff. But that also has to be coupled with like doing the trauma work and doing the work to release all of that programming. Because if you're still running that underlying programming of like, of fear and limitation and all of that stuff, you can say, I create my own reality as much as you want, but it's not going to like drop in and embody. So I think now everyone's kind of realizing like it's those two things together, right? Like doing that underlying work, completely reprogramming everything, and then you can start to really create your own reality because you've opened up and created the space for that to really drop in, and you can really embody that knowing. I think that's a really important piece of it too.
Absolutely, because
and I'm sorry, Stace, but I love what you said right there, because I think unfortunately there are some people out there that use spirituality as kind of a mask, to where, like you said, like let me just throw some positive affirmations out there, or let's do some meditation for 5 minutes and just think about how great life is, which are really good things, don't get me wrong. I mean, I know for me, when I do gratitude work, it's amazing, the results, and it's amazing how quickly the results come, right? But I also know for me too, I was one of those people that was like, oh, let's just put the spiritual band-aid over it, and everything will be light and fluffy, and we'll go on our day. And that worked for a little while, until the shadows crept back up, and then I would wonder, what's wrong with me? I'm supposed to be this happy, bubbly guy, and I'm getting angry at A, B, or C, and you said it exactly right. We have to do, we have to get into the muck. We have to get into to our own traumas, to our own shadows, and those need to be worked out if any real jubilation or happiness or something is going to come, any long lasting anyway.
Exactly.
And I love the way you explained it, because I mean, it was just explained so well that and I've always believed you can't have darkness without the light, or you can't have a light without the dark. They're both created the same way, and they both go hand in hand with each other. And you're mentioning breath work, and how important breath work is in the work you do with your clients and in your own work. And I completely agree about the breath work. My question is though, what are your like go-to breath work techniques? Like, can you share like one or two, and kind of let our listeners know like how to do it? Like you were talking about the circular mouth breathing. So can you like kind of go a little bit into that, and maybe a couple others that we might be able to try out?
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as what I do, I really only do the circular breathing. But I can share a couple little techniques with you. So the circular breathing is super easy. It's super, simple. So all it is you do it lying down on your back. And then you breathe in and out through your mouth with no space between the inhale and the exhale. So it's super simple. I can just demonstrate it really quick. And if you're listening, you should be able to hear, but it's just like this. So really, it's just getting the air going in and out of the body. And then the thing that's really important with this breath is it's much less about manipulating anything and much more about just dropping into your body's own natural rhythm. So you're just really getting the air moving in the body, but you're really just kind of aligning with your body's own natural rhythm and really allowing the breath to kind of breathe you. So you're just kind of relaxing into it and getting the air going. So that's what I use with my clients when I create these like audio breathwork sessions, and I have them do that. They're like about 20 to 25 minutes. And then also, it's one of the other really good like grounding techniques that I do is to just like take a deep breath. And then when you exhale, you're kind of pulling the energy down into the earth. And that's just a really easy thing you can do for like 2 seconds. So you just take a nice deep inhale and then you exhale and just pull your energy down into the earth, or kind of push it down into the earth. That's really grounding. I find that to be really helpful, especially when I'm like having like a ton of ideas or a ton of energy floating up here. If I can just like ground everything down, then it really helps to kind of like bring everything down into the body and down into the lower chakras. Because, you know, energy can kind of start to get stuck up here, and that's when you can feel like a little like frazzled and not focused. So that's another really good one too.
Nice. I just tried that, and yeah, totally just like wow.
Very grounding.
It works really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm like just locked into, you know, into the earth right now. So that was awesome. Thank you for sharing those. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so I know you mentioned too, maybe leading us through an Akashic record reading. Is that something you can share with us and our listeners?
Yeah, definitely. So what I'll do is I'm just going to kind of tune into the Akashic records, and I'll just channel a message for the listeners, for you and for the listeners. Does that sound good?
Absolutely. Sounds perfect.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Okay. So just give me 1 second here. Okay, so the records are now open. So there is a big energy around movement and transformation. And there's a huge energy around letting go of the past, and specifically looking at what old ways of being are you clinging to for comfort, and allowing yourself to really look at these things, really look at the ways in which you're still clinging to the past, and know that it's safe now to let go of these old ways of being, because what you're stepping into is way more powerful than you can even imagine. So taking a deep breath and dropping into your body and setting the intention of creating something new and something extremely expansive. Stepping into the possibility of what is available to you. Allowing the light to be activated within you. Seeing a pillar of light coming down from the heavens and into your crown chakra. This is the highest frequency white light that can be held on the planet at this time. And it is coming down into your crown and filling up your entire body with high frequency white light, which is activating and awakening your dormant gifts. Feeling this activation occurring and allowing this activation to help you easily let go of anything you're holding on to from the past, any stories of lack or limitation, allowing this old programming to easily melt away from your body now, as the light continues to activate and awaken your being. Taking a deep breath, allowing this activation to occur. And knowing that all you have to do is step into this new frequency. All you have to do is allow yourself to awaken. And as you do that, it has a tremendous effect on the entire planet. As your soul awakens, it literally lights the flame in thousands and thousands of others. Taking another deep breath. Allowing this pillar of light to continue to activate and awaken your being, absorbing and integrating. And seeing this light continuing to go down into your body and out through your feet, down into the earth, deeply grounding you and connecting you with the earth. Taking another deep breath. Allowing yourself to be completely present in the field of possibility and awakening to your soul's expansion. Feeling what that feels like and feeling this new energy moving through you. It's time to allow yourself to step into the future version of you. Feeling into this new version of yourself, feeling into the possibilities, and feeling in to your next level of expansion. Taking another deep breath. And just allowing this activation to continue to absorb and integrate. You're safe now. You're completely supported. Allow yourself to feel into the sacred space, connecting with the energy of your guides, deeply connecting with spirit, with your intuition, and allowing this energy to move through you. It's safe to open up and receive this new energy. Allowing yourself to continue to expand. Just taking a few moments to integrate this. And slowly coming back when you're ready.
Wow.
I had no idea what was going to come through. It's like,
that was beautiful.
Thank you.
Sounded about right to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really good. And so it sounds like it was you're tapped into maybe the collective. Is that what I'm
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
that's what it felt like to
They've
me,
been
too.
showing me a lot of like, because I think on a collective level, we're doing a lot of clearing, but also there's so much light coming down into the planet. And what they keep showing me is like this light activation that keeps happening. And like they keep wanting me to make everyone really aware of this high frequency light that's being activated. So I'm being guided a lot to do that with people. So I think that was, I kind of knew that was going to be part of it. I didn't really know anything else that was going to come through.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that, right? A lot of the light coming in right now, and just with the Schumann resonance, if you're familiar with that, and how the planet is just increasing in frequency, and I just think that has a lot to do with that. Just so much light right now, and kind of shining.
And it's interesting too, because we additionally are also seeing a lot of darkness, right? So like the more light that's coming into the planet, it's literally shining on the darkness. So even though it may seem like there's chaos, really it's just because we are seeing it because of all of the light that's coming onto the planet. So I find that really interesting.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. Where I think sometimes, we do have to sometimes it gets worse before it gets better.
Exactly.
So that's kind of what I tell my clients. It kind of reminds me, I do a lot of EMDR with people. And so it's like we are pulling up the trauma first, and then so it's getting worse, and then but eventually they move over to the other side, and it's like there's light, and there's there's the healing that occurs. So I think that is kind of happening on a collective level.
Oh, definitely. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, beautiful. Well, thank you so much. And so, Alyse, tell our listeners how they can find you and what you're currently working on right now.
Yeah, so you can find me, a great place to find me. I have a Facebook group called Breathe to Succeed, which is really fun. I do weekly energy forecasts in there, and I also have a lineup of guest experts that share in there every week. So that's a great place to find me. Also on Instagram, you can find me at Alyse_breathes, and then my website, AlyseBreathes.com. So currently I work with clients one-on-one. I also have 2 courses that I run that are really great. I have the Awakening, which is just around, not just, but it's mainly focused on activating and awakening your psychic abilities. And then the Metamorphosis is the deep dive into transmuting all of your ancestral and family stuff and stepping into your next level of creating your unique energy medicine and sharing your gifts. So, and then I work with clients one-on-one as well. And then, that's everything that I'm doing right now currently.
Beautiful. And we can add all of that to the show notes. So
cool.
You can find that very easily. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your experience.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And thank you for listening to our show. Stay tuned for more episodes being released on Mondays at 5:55 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And if you've enjoyed listening to our show, we would love a 5-star written review on iTunes. And of course, please share the love by sharing this with your friends. If you want to support the work that we're doing, please consider making a donation to our show by visiting our Patreon website at patreon.com/Be the Love Podcast. And until next time, love yourself, love each other, and love the world. We love you.
Love you guys. Take care. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.
We at Be the Love Podcast are honored to be supporting the Kamodi Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization in Uganda that is working to build a school that will promote and support healthcare, education, skills development, feeding the hungry, human rights, and environmental defenders. Their goal is to work with young mothers, single mothers, street children, and vulnerable families who lack nurture as they guide them to become productive individuals, which will lead to a productive generation. Please see our show notes on how to become a donor, mentor, volunteer, or sponsor.
Thank you, Heather Lynn, for providing us with your beautiful song to accompany our show, Be the Love. If you would like to learn more about Heather Lynn and her music, please visit her website at heatherlynnmusic.com. And thank you, Chrissy Grace at Leading Edge Productions for the beautiful design and graphics.
And thank you for tuning in. And until next time, we are Souls on the Journey. And thank you for hopping on the Ascension bus with us. And remember, there is always a seat for you.